There is a truth that many people feel, but very few are willing to confront honestly. And that truth is this: what feels comfortable is not always what is good for us. In fact, the very things that make us feel safe, secure, and at ease are often the same things that quietly hold us back from becoming who we are truly capable of becoming. Comfort, in its simplest form, feels like a reward. It feels like peace. It feels like something we have earned after effort and struggle. But what if that feeling is misleading? What if comfort, instead of being a destination, is actually a barrier? From a very young age, we are conditioned to seek comfort. We are taught to avoid pain, to stay within limits, to choose what is familiar over what is uncertain. We build routines, habits, and environments that protect us from discomfort. And while there is nothing wrong with seeking stability, the problem begins when comfort becomes our priority instead of our progress. Because the moment comfort becomes our goal, growth begins to slow down. Think about it for a moment. Every major step forward in life comes with some level of discomfort. Learning something new feels confusing and frustrating at first. Taking a risk feels scary. Speaking up feels intimidating. Trying and failing feels painful. None of these experiences are comfortable. And yet, they are the very experiences that shape us, strengthen us, and move us forward. Growth has never lived inside comfort. It has always lived just outside of it. The difficult truth is that most people do not fail because they are incapable. They do not fail because they lack intelligence, skill, or potential. They fail because they choose what is easy over what is necessary. They stay where they are because stepping forward feels uncertain. They avoid challenges because challenges come with the possibility of failure. And over time, this pattern becomes a habit of choosing comfort over courage. It does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You tell yourself you will start tomorrow. You convince yourself that now is not the right time. You avoid taking action because it feels inconvenient. And before you realize it, days turn into months and months turn into years. The comfort that once felt harmless begins to shape your life in ways you never intended. Opportunities are missed. Potential remains untapped. Dreams are delayed, not because they were impossible, but because they were uncomfortable to pursue. There is something deceptive about comfort. It does not feel like an enemy. It feels like a friend. It whispers reassurance. It tells you that you are fine where you are. It convinces you that there is no urgency, no need to push harder, no reason to step into the unknown. And that is what makes it dangerous. Because while you are standing still, life continues to move forward. While you are choosing ease, others are choosing effort. While you are avoiding discomfort, someone else is embracing it and growing stronger because of it. Discomfort, on the other hand, has a bad reputation. It feels unpleasant. It challenges us. It exposes our weaknesses. It forces us to face things we would rather avoid. But within that discomfort lies something powerful. It is where learning happens. It is where resilience is built. It is where confidence is developed. Not the kind of confidence that comes from feeling good, but the kind that comes from overcoming something difficult. When you step into discomfort, you begin to discover parts of yourself that you did not know existed. You realize that you are capable of more than you thought. You learn how to adapt, how to recover, how to keep going even when things are not easy. And slowly, what once felt uncomfortable begins to feel normal. Your limits expand, your mindset changes, your tolerance for challenge increases. This is how growth happens, not in a single moment, but through repeated exposure to what once felt difficult. The problem is that most people never stay in discomfort long enough to experience its benefits. They step into it briefly, feel the resistance, and quickly retreat back to what feels safe. They interpret discomfort as a sign that something is wrong, when in reality, it is often a sign that something is right. It is a signal that you are pushing beyond your current limits, that you are stretching into new territory, that you are evolving. Avoiding discomfort might protect you from temporary pain, but it also protects you from long-term progress. It keeps you in a cycle of sameness, and while that sameness may feel secure, it often leads to a deeper kind of dissatisfaction, a quiet awareness that you could have done more, been more, achieved more, not because you lacked the ability, but because you avoided the path that required effort. There is also a cost to comfort that many people do not realize until much later. It is the cost of missed opportunities. Every time you choose comfort over action, you close the door on something that could have been. Every time you avoid a challenge, you miss a chance to grow. These missed moments do not always feel significant at the time, but over time they accumulate. They shape the direction of your life. On the other hand, choosing discomfort is not about making life unnecessarily hard. It is about being intentional. It is about recognizing that the things worth having often require effort, patience, and persistence. It is about understanding that temporary discomfort can lead to long-term fulfillment. It is about making a conscious decision to move forward, even when it feels difficult. This does not mean you will always succeed. There will be failures, there will be setbacks, there will be moments where things do not go as planned, but those experiences are not signs that you should stop. They are part of the process. They are lessons, not endings. And each time you face them, you become a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more prepared for what comes next. The shift begins with a simple realization. Discomfort is not something to fear, but something to use. Instead of asking, how can I avoid this? Start asking, what can this teach me? Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles, begin to see them as opportunities. Opportunities to grow, to improve, to become better than you were yesterday. It also requires honesty, honest reflection about where you are choosing comfort over growth. Honest awareness of the excuses you make, honest acknowledgement of the habits that are holding you back. This kind of honesty is not always easy, but it is necessary because you cannot change what you are not willing to face. At some point, everyone reaches a moment where they must decide what matters more, the comfort of staying the same or the discomfort of becoming something more. That decision does not always feel dramatic. It often shows up in small everyday choices. The choice to try instead of avoid. The choice to continue instead of quit. The choice to step forward instead of stay still. These choices may seem small in the moment, but they have a powerful impact over time. They create momentum. They build confidence. They shape your identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone who avoids difficulty, but as someone who faces it. And that shift in identity changes everything. Because once you start embracing discomfort, you stop being controlled by fear. You stop waiting for things to feel easy. You stop depending on motivation. Instead, you rely on discipline, on consistency, on the understanding that progress is not always comfortable, but it is always worth it. The truth is simple but not easy to accept. Comfort will keep you where you are. Discomfort will take you where you want to go. One offers immediate ease but long-term limitation. The other offers temporary struggle but lasting growth. And the choice between them is something you make every single day, often without even realizing it. If you truly want to grow, you must be willing to let go of the idea that life should always feel easy. You must be willing to step into uncertainty, to face challenges, to accept that progress comes with discomfort, not because you enjoy the struggle, but because you understand its value. In the end, the goal is not to eliminate comfort entirely. It is to redefine your relationship with it, to see it not as a place to stay, but as a place to visit, a place to rest, to recover, but not to settle. Because the moment you settle, you stop growing. And growth, no matter how difficult it may feel in the moment, is what gives life meaning, direction, and purpose. It is what allows you to move beyond limitations, to discover your potential, and to create something more out of your life. So the next time you are faced with a choice between what is comfortable and what is challenging, pause and consider what you truly want, not just today, but in the long run. Because the easy path may feel good now, but the harder path often leads somewhere far more valuable. There is a truth that sits quietly in the background of many lives, often ignored because it is uncomfortable to accept, and that truth is this: no one is coming to save you. It is not a statement meant to discourage or to take away hope. It is a statement meant to awaken something stronger than hope: responsibility. Because the moment you truly understand that your life is your responsibility, everything begins to change. From an early age, many people grow up believing that at some point, something or someone will step in and make things easier. Maybe it is an opportunity that appears at just the right time, or a person who offers support, or a moment when everything suddenly becomes clear. This belief is comforting. It allows us to feel that we are not alone in our struggles, that help will come when we need it most. But life rarely works in such a predictable or convenient way. People wait. They wait for motivation to appear before they start working. They wait for confidence before they take a step forward. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect circumstances. They tell themselves that they will begin when they feel ready. But readiness is often an illusion. It is something that develops through action, not before it. And while they wait, time continues to move forward, opportunities pass, and nothing changes. Waiting feels safe because it removes pressure. It creates the illusion that progress is still possible, just postponed. But in reality, waiting often becomes a quiet form of avoidance. It is easier to delay action than to risk failure. It is easier to hope for help than to accept responsibility. And over time, this habit of waiting becomes a pattern that shapes a person's entire life. The harsh reality is that no one else is responsible for your progress. People may support you, encourage you, guide you, but they cannot live your life for you. They cannot make your decisions, take your risks, or face your challenges. Even the best advice in the world is meaningless if it is not acted upon. Even the strongest support system cannot replace personal effort. This realization can feel heavy at first. It can feel like a burden to know that everything depends on you. But hidden within that truth is something powerful. If no one else is responsible for your life, then no one else has control over it either. That means your direction, your growth, and your future are not limited by external circumstances alone. They are shaped by your choices. There is a difference between needing help and depending on it. Seeking guidance is valuable, learning from others is important, but relying on someone else to change your situation is risky because it places your future in something you cannot control. When you depend entirely on external factors, you give away your power. You place your progress on hold, waiting for something that may never come. Taking responsibility means reclaiming that power. It means recognizing that even if the situation is not your fault, the response is still your responsibility. Life is not always fair. There will be obstacles, disadvantages, and unexpected challenges. But focusing on what is unfair does not create change. Action does. The people who move forward are not always the most talented or the most fortunate. They are often the ones who decide to act despite uncertainty. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They start where they are, with what they have. They understand that progress is not about having everything figured out. It is about being willing to figure things out along the way. There's a certain courage required to live this way. It means stepping into situations where you do not feel fully prepared. It means making decisions without guarantees. It means accepting that mistakes will happen. But it also means that every step you take builds experience. and every experience builds confidence. Not the kind of confidence that comes from knowing everything will go right, but the kind that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way. One of the biggest shifts happens when you stop asking, "Who will help me?" and start asking, "What can I do next?" That shift turns you from a passive observer into an active participant in your own life. It removes excuses and replaces them with responsibility. It may not make things easier, but it makes them possible. It is important to understand that taking responsibility does not mean doing everything alone. It does not mean refusing support or isolating yourself. It means understanding that support is a bonus, not a requirement. It means you continue moving forward whether help is available or not. You appreciate assistance when it comes, but you do not depend on it to begin. There will be moments when you feel lost, when you wish someone could simply show you the way. There will be times when things feel overwhelming, when the path ahead is unclear. In those moments, it is tempting to stop and wait. But those are often the moments that matter the most, because choosing to move forward in uncertainty is what builds strength. Strength is not built in easy situations. It is built when you take action despite fear, when you continue despite doubt, when you keep going without guarantees. And each time you do that, you prove something to yourself. You prove that you are capable. You prove that you do not need perfect conditions to make progress. There is also a sense of ownership that comes with responsibility. When you take control of your life, your achievements become more meaningful. Your progress becomes something you have earned, not something that happened by chance. And even your failures take on a different meaning. They are no longer signs of defeat, but lessons that guide you forward. Blaming others, blaming circumstances, or blaming timing may provide temporary relief, but it does not create change. It keeps you stuck in the same place, repeating the same patterns. Responsibility, on the other hand, creates movement. It forces you to look at what you can control and take action within that space. The truth is, most people know what they need to do. They know the steps they should take, the habits they should change, the risks they should consider. But knowledge alone is not enough. The difference lies in action, and action requires a decision to stop waiting and start doing. There is no perfect moment when everything aligns. There is no guarantee that things will be easy. There is no assurance that you will succeed on the first attempt. But there is one certainty: if you do nothing, nothing will change. And if you continue to wait, you will remain exactly where you are. Accepting that no one is coming to save you is not about losing hope. It is about shifting where that hope is placed. Instead of hoping for external rescue, you begin to trust in your own ability to create change. You begin to see yourself as the source of progress, not the victim of circumstance. This shift does not happen instantly. It develops over time through consistent action and self-awareness. It requires you to challenge your own habits, to question your excuses, to push yourself beyond what feels comfortable. But with each step, it becomes easier. With each effort, it becomes more natural. Eventually, you reach a point where you no longer wait for permission. You no longer need reassurance to begin. You understand that progress is your responsibility, and you act accordingly. You take initiative. You create opportunities. You build momentum. And once that momentum begins, it changes everything. Small actions lead to small results, which lead to bigger actions, which lead to greater results. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes achievable, not because someone came to save you, but because you chose to move forward. In the end, this truth is not meant to isolate you. It is meant to empower you, because if your life is in your hands, then your future is not fixed. It is something you can shape, influence, and improve. It may not be easy, and it may not be immediate, but it is possible. No one else can take your steps for you. No one else can make your decisions. No one else can build your life. But that is not a limitation. It is an opportunity to take control, to take responsibility, and to create something meaningful through your own effort. And the moment you stop waiting and start acting, you will realize something important. You were never meant to be saved. You were meant to rise. There is a belief that quietly shapes the way many people live their lives, a belief so deeply rooted that it often goes unquestioned. Failure is something to avoid at all costs. From a young age, people are taught to aim for perfection, to get things right the first time, to avoid mistakes, and to see failure as something negative, even shameful. Over time, this belief becomes more than just an idea. It becomes a fear. And that fear begins to control decisions, limit actions, and prevent people from even trying. But there is a truth that stands in complete opposition to that belief, and it is a truth that many people struggle to accept. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. It is not something that blocks the path forward. It is something that creates it. Every step towards success is built on lessons learned from things that did not go as planned. The problem is not failure itself. The problem is how people perceive it. Failure is often seen as a final outcome, a sign that something is over, that an attempt has ended unsuccessfully. But in reality, failure is not an ending. It is feedback. It is information. It is a response that tells you what worked, what didn't, and what needs to change. When viewed this way, failure becomes not something to fear, but something to use. Think about any skill that takes time to develop. No one becomes skilled at something without making mistakes along the way. Whether it is learning to speak, to write, to solve problems, or to perform under pressure, the process is filled with errors, corrections, and adjustments. Those mistakes are not signs of weakness. They are signs of progress. They are evidence that effort is being made, that learning is happening. And yet, as people grow older, their tolerance for failure often decreases. The stakes feel higher. The judgment feels stronger. The consequences feel more serious. Instead of seeing failure as part of the process, it begins to feel like something that must be avoided. This shift leads to hesitation. It leads to overthinking. It leads to inaction. People start to hold back. They avoid opportunities that carry risk. They choose paths that feel safer, even if those paths do not lead where they truly want to go. They convince themselves that it is better not to try than to try and fail. But what they do not realize is that avoiding failure does not protect them from disappointment. It simply changes its form. Instead of the disappointment of trying and failing, they experience the regret of never trying at all. There is something important to understand about success that is often overlooked. Success is not a straight line. It is not a smooth, predictable journey from one point to another. It is uneven. It is uncertain. It is filled with moments of doubt, setbacks, and unexpected challenges. The people who reach success are not the ones who avoid these moments. They are the ones who continue through them. Every successful individual has faced rejection. Every one of them has made mistakes. Every one of them has experienced moments where things did not work out. The difference is not that they are immune to failure. The difference is that they do not allow failure to define them. They see it as part of the process, not the end of it. There is also a disconnect between what people see and what actually exists. Society tends to highlight results. Achievements are celebrated, success stories are shared. But the struggles that lead to those results are often hidden. The failures, the doubts, the repeated attempts that did not succeed, they are rarely visible. This creates an illusion. It makes success appear easier and more immediate than it actually is. When people compare their own struggles to someone else's visible success, they often feel discouraged. They assume that they are falling behind, that they are not capable, that something is wrong with them. But what they are comparing is their reality to someone else's highlight. They are seeing the outcome without seeing the process. The reality is that failure teaches lessons that success cannot. When something goes wrong, it forces reflection, it forces adjustment, it forces growth, it reveals weaknesses that need to be addressed and strengths that need to be developed. Success, on the other hand, can sometimes create a false sense of confidence. It can make it seem like everything is working, even when there are areas that need improvement. Failure has a way of sharpening awareness. It makes you pay attention. It pushes you to think differently, to try new approaches, to adapt. It builds resilience, the ability to continue despite setbacks. And resilience is one of the most important qualities for long-term success. Avoiding failure means avoiding these lessons. It means staying within a limited range of experience, where growth is minimal. It means choosing comfort over progress. And while that may feel safer in the short term, it often leads to stagnation. There is also an emotional aspect to failure that cannot be ignored. Failure can be uncomfortable. It can bring feelings of disappointment, frustration, and self-doubt. These feelings are real, and they are not easy to face. But they are also temporary. They pass, and in many cases they lead to greater clarity and determination. Learning to deal with these emotions is part of the process. It is part of building the mental strength needed to continue, because success is not just about skill or knowledge. It is also about the ability to persist, to stay focused, to keep moving forward even when things are difficult. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make is to change their relationship with failure. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, they begin to see it as something to engage with. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" they begin to ask, "What can I learn if I do?" This shift changes everything. It turns fear into curiosity. It turns hesitation into action. It also changes the way progress is measured. Instead of measuring success only by outcomes, it begins to be measured by effort, by improvement, by the willingness to try. This creates a more sustainable path forward, because even when the outcome is not what was expected, there is still value in the experience. There is a certain courage required to embrace failure. It means being willing to take risks without guarantees. It means being open to criticism, to judgment, to the possibility that things may not work out. It means stepping into situations where the outcome is uncertain. But it also means giving yourself the chance to grow beyond your current limits. Failing repeatedly does not mean you are not capable. It means you are in the process. It means you are learning. It means you are moving forward. Even if the progress is not immediately visible, each attempt builds on the last. Each mistake provides insight. Each setback adds to your understanding. Public failure in particular can feel especially difficult. The fear of being judged by others can be a powerful barrier. But it is important to remember that most people are focused on their own lives, their own challenges, their own fears. And those who do judge often do so from a place of their own insecurity or inaction. In many cases, the people who achieve the most are the ones who are willing to be seen trying, failing, and trying again. They are not waiting for perfection before they act. They are learning through action, and over time, that willingness to engage with failure sets them apart. There is no way to completely eliminate failure from the process of growth. It is not something that can be avoided entirely, but it is something that can be managed, understood, and used. It is something that can be turned into an advantage rather than a limitation. If success is the goal, then failure is part of the path, not as an obstacle, but as a guide, not as something to fear, but as something to learn from. It is a necessary part of becoming better, stronger, and more capable. The choice is not between success and failure. The choice is between action and inaction. Because choosing not to try may protect you from failure, but it also guarantees that nothing will change. Choosing to try opens the door to both failure and success. And within that process, growth becomes possible. Over time, as you continue to take action, your perspective begins to shift. Failure loses its power to intimidate. It becomes familiar. It becomes manageable. It becomes something you expect, something you prepare for, something you learn from. And with that shift, a new level of freedom emerges. The freedom to try without fear of perfection. The freedom to explore, to experiment, to take risks. The freedom to grow beyond limitations that once felt fixed. In the end, success is not built on avoiding failure. It is built on engaging with it. It is built on the willingness to continue despite it. It is built on the understanding that every failure carries within it the potential for progress. So if you want to succeed, you must be willing to fail. Not once, but many times. Not quietly, but sometimes publicly. Not comfortably, but often with difficulty. Because within those failures are the lessons, the strength, and the experience that make success possible. And when you begin to see failure not as the opposite of success, but as part of it, something changes. The fear begins to fade. The hesitation begins to disappear. And in its place comes a determination to move forward, no matter how many times it takes. There is a quiet pressure that shapes the way many people think, speak, and act. And it often goes unnoticed because it feels so normal. It is the pressure to be liked, to be accepted, to avoid disapproval at all costs. From an early age, people begin to understand that approval brings comfort, while criticism brings discomfort. Over time, this understanding grows into a habit, and that habit becomes a way of living. Choices are no longer guided purely by personal values or desires, but by how those choices will be perceived by others. At first, it may seem harmless. Wanting to be liked is natural. Wanting to avoid conflict is understandable. But the problem begins when this desire turns into dependency. When approval becomes a requirement instead of a preference, it starts to control decisions, it starts to limit expression, it starts to shape identity in ways that are subtle but significant. There is a truth that many people resist because it challenges this way of thinking, and that truth is simple. No matter what you do, someone will disagree with you. Someone will question your choices. Someone will judge your actions. It does not matter how careful you are, how kind you are, or how much effort you put into being understood. Different perspectives, different values, and different expectations make complete agreement impossible. Trying to please everyone is like chasing something that cannot be caught. The more you try, the more it slips away. You adjust your behavior for one group, only to realize it does not satisfy another. You change your approach to avoid criticism, only to face it from a different direction. It becomes an endless cycle of adjustment, where the goal keeps moving further away. This constant effort comes at a cost. It drains energy. It creates stress. It leads to overthinking every decision, every word, every action. Instead of acting with clarity, you act with caution. Instead of speaking honestly, you filter your thoughts. Instead of pursuing what matters to you, you prioritize what will be accepted by others. Over time, something deeper begins to happen. When you consistently shape yourself to meet external expectations, you begin to lose connection with your own identity. Your preferences become unclear. Your values become uncertain. Your direction becomes influenced more by others than by yourself. You may still be moving forward, but you are no longer sure if you are moving in the right direction for you. There is also a sense of limitation that comes with this way of living. Many people hold back their ideas, their opinions, and their ambitions because they fear how others might react. They stay silent when they want to speak. They avoid opportunities that might expose them to judgment. They choose safer paths, not because those paths are better, but because they are less likely to attract criticism. But avoiding criticism does not lead to freedom. It leads to restriction. It creates a life that feels controlled, not by external rules, but by internal fear. And that fear often grows stronger the more it is followed. Criticism itself is not the problem. It is a natural part of interaction. Whenever people think differently, see things differently, or value things differently, disagreement will exist. Trying to eliminate criticism entirely is not realistic. What matters is how it is interpreted and how it is handled. Not all criticism is equal. Some of it is constructive, offering insight that can lead to improvement. Some of it is based on misunderstanding, reflecting more about the other person's perspective than about your actions. Some of it is simply noise, opinions that do not add value but still exist. Learning to distinguish between these types is important. When every form of criticism is taken personally, it becomes overwhelming. It feels like a constant attack, something that must be avoided at all costs. But when it is viewed more objectively, it becomes easier to manage. It becomes information rather than judgment, something to consider, not something to fear. There is also an important realization that shifts the way criticism is experienced. The same action that one person criticizes, another person may respect. The same choice that one person disagrees with, another person may admire. This means that approval and disapproval are not fixed. They depend on perspective. And if perspectives vary, then trying to satisfy all of them becomes impossible. At some point, a decision has to be made, a decision about what matters more, external approval or internal alignment. This decision is not always easy because external approval is immediate. It provides reassurance. It creates a sense of belonging. Internal alignment, on the other hand, requires confidence. It requires trust in your own judgment, even when it is not supported by others. Living authentically means making choices that reflect your values, your goals, and your understanding of what is right for you. It means accepting that not everyone will agree. It means being willing to stand by your decisions, even when they are questioned. This does not mean ignoring others completely or dismissing all feedback. It means being selective. It means listening, but not being controlled. It means considering different viewpoints, but ultimately deciding based on what aligns with your direction. There is a certain strength that develops when you stop trying to please everyone. It is not the strength of being unaffected by others, but the strength of not being defined by them. It allows you to act with clarity instead of hesitation. It allows you to speak with honesty instead of fear. It allows you to move forward without constantly looking back for approval. This strength is not something that appears instantly. It develops gradually. It grows through experience, through moments where you choose to act despite uncertainty, through situations where you accept disagreement without changing your direction unnecessarily. There will still be discomfort. There will still be moments where criticism feels personal, where doubt appears, where the desire to be accepted returns. But over time, those moments become easier to handle. They lose their intensity. They become part of the process rather than obstacles within it. One of the most difficult aspects of this shift is the willingness to be misunderstood. Not everyone will take the time to understand your perspective. Not everyone will see the reasons behind your choices, and that can feel frustrating. But seeking complete understanding from everyone leads back to the same cycle of adjustment and compromise. Being misunderstood does not mean you are wrong. It means there is a difference in perspective. And while understanding is valuable, it is not always achievable. Accepting that reality allows you to move forward without needing constant validation. There is also a form of freedom that comes with letting go of the need to please everyone. It creates space for creativity, for expression, for growth. It allows you to explore ideas without fear of immediate judgment. It allows you to take risks that you might otherwise avoid. This freedom does not eliminate criticism, but it changes its impact. It becomes something that exists alongside your actions, not something that controls them. It becomes a part of the environment, not a barrier within it. In many cases, the people who make the greatest impact are not the ones who try to satisfy everyone. They are the ones who stay true to their direction, even when it is not widely accepted at first. They are willing to stand apart, to challenge expectations, to follow paths that others may not understand. This does not make the process easier, but it makes it meaningful. Because when your actions are aligned with your values, there is a sense of purpose that cannot be replaced by approval alone. There is a clarity that comes from knowing why you are doing what you are doing. Trying to please everyone often leads to a life that feels scattered, pulled in different directions by different expectations. Choosing authenticity creates focus. It creates consistency. It creates a sense of direction that is not dependent on changing opinions. The truth remains that criticism is unavoidable. No amount of adjustment can remove it completely, but its presence does not have to be limiting. It can be something that exists without controlling your choices. Living in a way that reflects your true self requires courage. Not dramatic courage, but consistent courage. The courage to speak when it would be easier to stay silent. The courage to act when it would be easier to avoid attention. The courage to continue when it would be easier to stop. It also requires patience, because the results of living authentically are not always immediate. Approval may not come quickly. Understanding may take time. But over time, something more valuable develops. A sense of alignment, a sense of confidence, a sense of direction that is stable and self-defined. In the end, the goal is not to eliminate the desire to be liked. It is to prevent that desire from controlling your life. It is to recognize that while approval can be appreciated, it is not necessary for progress. Because the moment you stop trying to please everyone, you begin to live in a way that is more honest, more focused, and more aligned with who you are. And while that path may include criticism, disagreement, and moments of misunderstanding, it also includes something far more important: the freedom to be yourself and the ability to move forward without being held back by the need for approval.